day before Thanksgiving, my girlfriend and I took a day out to catch a couple movies in the theaters. Weekdays are a lot cheaper than weekends, where $20 is enough to cover admission for each of us, and that's for both the films we watched. The original intent was to watch Murder on the Orient Express in our anticipation of the main attraction, which was of course Pixar's new animated film Coco. However, due to an oversight by the theater, that had showtimes for Orient listed on the website, even though it wasn't actually playing. We ended up watching a film called Wonder instead. I didn't know much about this film beforehand. I knew the basics, the fact that it was about a small boy with a facial difference who was starting in public school after being homeschooled for all his life. And I think that is all anyone really needs to know about this film going in. That and the way it focuses on the many different perspectives and angles brought about from his situation. After watching the film, and I'll dig deep into my thoughts, I believe Wonder was likely a better choice than Murder on the Orient Express. And I already figured as much, but I was also uncertain whether or not Wonder would be, a downer of a film, and whether or not I'd be better off waiting to see it on home video, as opposed to the escapism I was actually looking for. Rabies and Germs, welcome to the NJ Today YouTube channel. My name's McConnaughay, and for today's video, we'll be taking a look at the 2017 film, Wonder. The drama film is directed by Stephen Chbosky, and written by Jack Thorne, Steve Conrad, and Chbosky respectively, and is based on the 2012 novel of the same name by R.J. Palacio. Although I haven't read the novel itself, I am familiar with a couple of names involved in the story side of the project. Conrad's work can be seen in the solid film The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, as well as the good Pursuit of Happiness film, and Stephen Chbosky is known to me for directing The Perks of Being a Wallflower, another very good, sentimental film. The film stars Julia Roberts, Owen Wilson, Jacob Tremblay, and Isabella Vidovit, respectively, with Robert and Wilson of course being very known names in the industry, the latter two I'm not very familiar with. The film was released in the United States on November 17, 2017, by Lionsgate, and has blown up remarkably. As of right now, it looks as though it is on pace to make well over $100 million at the domestic box office, and could come close to $200 million if it delivers a fraction of that amount overseas. As I said, the anticipation I had in regards to this film wasn't very much in particular. I expected a film that would perform to a similar standard of many other films of the same genre. The predicament with the little boy is one that I knew would easily resonate with audiences, and I assumed the film would have no trouble pulling at the heartstrings and moving moviegoers to tears. I was right whenever I assumed this, because the film is definitely capable of such feats. The little boy is adorable and sweet, with a small, timid voice, and seeing anything bad happen to him is heartbreaking in itself. I will say, though, that I believe Wonder doesn't exploit its audience's empathy, providing performances that are commendable beyond the subject matter being portrayed. I believe the best performance is most certainly Jacob Tremblay, but Julia Roberts and Owen Wilson are very likable in this film as well. They are charming and deliver their performances with worthwhile execution, complemented by the way the humor feels natural and understated. Although the small child has all these attributes about himself, they don't approach him as a flawless protagonist. The fact is, regardless of his situation, he is still a child, and because of his situation, his whole life has been spent with his father and mother, allowing him to be the center of their attention, and the film demonstrates this through the sister's role. Although certain viewers might see the sister's role as self-important, it portrays her perspective well and demonstrates that she has been cast aside, and although her situation may not be as detrimental as the small boy's, it shouldn't simply be ignored or forgotten about either. The way it has changed the mother's life is also demonstrated. The only character I find myself wondering whether or not it could have been approached differently is Olivia's best friend, whose character is ultimately pivotal to the film itself, but feels as though she didn't have as interesting of a dynamic, and the closure to her subplot could have been more effective. The film is sad, but it doesn't rely on simply being a depressing film. The humor itself keeps a hopeful undertone always portrayed. Personally, I thought that Wonder captured a sense of realism with the situation. The way the students react to him, the way that perhaps nice but uncomfortable students react to him with double takes and forced smiles, and the unfortunate way that many of them talk behind his back. The film doesn't have him simply accepted, and shows the bullying he encountered. Similar to the other films those involved were known for, Wonder has small victories, large defeats, and every time momentum seems to be met, it is stomped downward again, leaving the characters to grit through the darkness until it runs its course. It certainly isn't without its sentiment. The film comes together in the most predictable way imaginable, and everything resolves itself in a way that feels very much like it's out of a film, and very much unlike real life. I could see the criticism that it was, in fact, too perfect. Everything coming together too neatly when the film itself otherwise spends its time showing how imperfect its characters are. Regardless, I feel happy that they didn't try to force tragedy for the sake of easy tears, and although I do think it's too perfect at the end, I definitely prefer it over the opposite, and felt like I wanted the characters to succeed enough to where I wasn't too bothered by it. In conclusion, Wonder may not be as hard-hitting of a look into its subject matter as it could have been. It is charming, hopeful, and sweet, with a lovable lead that's heartbreaking to see stumble, and although it feels polished and sentimental, has enough substantial realism to make those aspects acceptable. The characters are likable, the film's entertaining, and it carries the message of being empathetic and treating everyone a little nicer. I'd recommend it. Thanks for joining me on this edition of NJ Today. My name's McConnaughay, and I'll see you next time.